Aloha and howdy. Welcome to Forkish Habits. I'm Heather, and today we're celebrating St. Patrick's Day. So stick with us as we make a traditional Irish meal, Brine eating compliant. As you can tell, I love St. Patrick's Day. I'm of Irish descent and had ancestors that immigrated to the United States back in the 1800s. So stick with me, and later I'm going to tell you why this is a traditional St. Patrick's Day meal. Today we're going to be making corned beef and cabbage from scratch. Now usually at the store you would start with one of those pre-packaged processed corned beefs, and we don't want to do that because it has nitrates in it and often sugar. I promise you this is easy to do. You just need a head start because you're going to have this brine for 3 days before you're going to actually cook it. So let's look at the ingredients that we need to make this. We're going to need some herbs. We're going to need a cinnamon stick, thyme, ground ginger, bay leaves, whole allspice, whole cloves, mustard seed, whole peppercorns, garlic, and 3/4 of a cup of fine sea salt. The other thing that we're going to need to make it is our brisket. Now there's two different kinds of briskets that you can buy. You can buy flat cut or you can buy the point cut. Flat cut is going to be a leaner cut of meat, whereas the point cut is going to have that big layer of fat. So for bright line eating, my suggestion would be to get a flat cut, which is what this is. And you're going to want to get between 2.5 to 4 pounds. Keep in mind that your meat is going to shrink in the cooking. So let's get started on making our brine. To start our brine, we're going to need 2 quarts of water, which is 8 cups. 3/4 of a cup of fine sea salt. Dissolve the sea salt. 1 cinnamon stick. 1 tablespoon of mustard seed. 1 tablespoon of peppercorns. 1 tablespoon of whole allspice. 1 teaspoon of ginger powder. 1/2 teaspoon of thyme. 4 bay leaves. 10 whole cloves, and approximately 1 tablespoon of minced garlic. You mix it and then let it cool. You don't want to put the meat in with this brine liquid hot because it's going to start cooking the meat. So it's really important that you let this cool for a while. So the brine has cooled and it's ready for us to put the brisket in. First thing we're going to do is we're going to rinse off the brisket and then we're going to put it in. The brisket may have some areas of fat on it. Don't cut the fat off at this point because you're going to want that in for the flavor in the cooking. You can cut it before you eat it. So let's go to the sink and rinse this brisket. You can either put it in a pot, put it in a large glass bowl, or put it in a 2-gallon Ziploc bag. The meat may try to resurface during the time, so you want to weigh it down. Put it in the refrigerator for the next 3 days. Once a day for the 3 days that it's in the refrigerator, you're going to flip your brisket and you're going to give your spices a good mix to get them moving throughout the liquid again. And we're back. It's been 3 days that our brisket has been soaking in the brine. We've flipped it over each day. Now I've rinsed it off in the sink, just running cold water over it because I want to get some of that excess salt off of it that it's been soaking in. And we are ready to cook it in the oven. And we're going to have the fattier side up. Now you may notice that the brisket has kind of a gray color. This is normal and what you're going to expect. We did not use a pink curing salt of sodium nitrite in it, which is what you find in the packages that you buy. The oven is preheated. The oven is preheated to 350 degrees. Optionally, you may put mustard on the top of it. Mustard is a condiment, freebie, and you can put whatever kind of mustard you like. Or you can leave it plain if you'd prefer. It's totally up to your taste. I'm gonna put a creamy yellow mustard on it. Now we're going to seal it up, and it's in a glass Pyrex dish, and I'm just sealing it within foil. Over the years, I have made many corned beefs, and myself, I have discovered that I prefer a corned beef that has been baked in the oven. You're going to bake your corned beef for 1 hour per pound of how much your corned beef weighed. And you're going to round up by the quarter. This corned beef was 3.22. So that means that it's going to cook for 3 hours for the 3, and it's going to be 15 minutes, 3 hours and 15 minutes, because I got that quarter of rounding up to 25. So if it were 3.5 pounds, it'd be 3 hours and a half. So you get the math there. All right, so we're gonna put it in the oven, and it's gonna do its thing all on its own for the next 3 hours and 15 minutes. So while our corned beef is finishing up in the oven and is almost done, we're gonna prepare our vegetables that we wanna cook. Traditionally, cabbage. Then you can do carrots, and often it would be potatoes. Well, potatoes would count as a grain. I have chosen to do a celery root or celeriac. And this is a root, like having a parsnip, that you could use instead of a potato. Take the corned beef out of the oven and let it rest for 10 minutes. Take your corned beef out of it and pour that liquid into a pot on medium heat. You're going to add your carrots and your celery root into the pot and get them cooking till soft. Pull them out and then throw your cabbage wedges in. The reason that I haven't put the cabbage in initially when I'm cooking the carrots and the celery root is because the cabbage is going to cook really fast, and I'd rather have it cooked to a nice consistency than have to be waiting in that liquid till the carrot is done and the cabbage gets really soggy. And here we have our plated St. Patrick's Day dinner. It's also delicious any time of year. You're gonna have a layer of fat that's on here. Just cut it off before you weigh your corned beef to eat. Now, some suggestions on what's delicious to have on top of this is a mustard of your choice, whatever kind of mustard you prefer. It's a free condiment. It's also delicious with horseradish. You can check the link here for my homemade horseradish recipe if you'd like to make some out of horseradish root. As promised, here's a little history on corned beef and cabbage for St. Patrick's Day. Corned beef and cabbage isn't actually a traditional Irish dish. It is an American Irish dish. When Irish immigrants were coming over to the US, they wanted to bring things from their home and have celebrations from their home. Now, back in Ireland, they would have had bacon or salt pork. But here in the United States, brisket was a cheaper form of meat, of a beef, that they could use, and they brined it to turn it into the corned beef and added cabbage, which was another cheap vegetable here in the US. So corned beef and cabbage is actually an American Irish tradition. So be sure to buy your brisket early. Remember, you're going to need to brine it for 3 days in your refrigerator and then cook it on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. So as I leave you, I'd like to leave you with an Irish blessing. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rain fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Thank you for spending this time with us at Forkish Habits. You can find this recipe on our website at forkishhabits.com, along with all our other recipes. Check us out on Facebook and on Instagram. And we'll see you next time on YouTube with our next recipe. Happy St. Patrick's Day.